Welcome to the Win Make Give podcast. It's Chad Hyams here with Bob Stewart way over there. Bob, how you doing today?
Hello, Chad. Is this thing on? Hello. Hey.
Finally.
How you doing?
Yes, it is.
It is. I'm doing good. I'm excited.
You know what I love, Bob?
What? Tell me.
I was going to say, I say with Bob Stewart over there as our intro, only because you and I could not really be much farther apart and in the continental United States. Yet thanks to this beautiful thing called the internet, we might as well be in the same building right now, just in separate rooms. There is no difference.
Yeah. Sometimes when I go to our corporate office, I have meetings with people that are in the next room on Zoom. Like, that's how ridiculous that it is. But yeah, we're a long ways apart, man. When am I going to see you again in person?
I don't know. Coming to Florida anytime soon?
Forget about all that. I feel like, Chad,
I'm going farther away, Bob. I'm going farther away.
You are. You're trying to get to Italy. And we always joke that these podcasts we do most of the time are for our own growth, right? And we'll go find people to talk to because like they have something that we're trying to learn. But I feel like maybe on this one, and like this guy has like Italian roots, and you guys, he was trying to speak some Italian to you earlier. And I know that you and your lovely bride have like a pinpoint on a map in Italy that's kind of the final destination. So did you do this did you schedule this one for you?
Oh yeah. I don't know if our guest today has any knowledge to bring, to our guests. I have no idea. His name is Italian. So I said, okay, he's worth having a conversation with. And hopefully he brings something other than we can talk about the beautiful rolling hills of Italy and all the wonderful food and vino and I can get into my own homemade recipe of limoncello with him. I mean, I could take this conversation nowhere of value to anybody except me.
Well, we don't generally start with an agenda when we have a guest. No. So I'm excited to see where this goes. Maybe we'll be traversing the hills of Sicily, or I don't know. I'm geographically illiterate.
I know you don't know it. Okay. He mentioned northern Italian cities. Okay. Sicily is known for The Godfather, right? Stay away unless you know what you're getting ready to get into. So let's get to it. Let's bring on, and folks, I love it because I usually butcher names of our guests. There was one, Bob, I don't remember off the top of my head. It was so easy. And you were like, did you really just clarify with them that their name was like John Smith as our guest or something? This one I knew. I asked him to confirm, yet I knew that our guest today is Dan Tocchini, as I know how to say my Italian words when they're written in front of me. So Dan, welcome to the Win Make Give podcast.
Thank you very much. And I'm making homemade raviolis this weekend. So,
that was a few weeks ago for me. I've got a few dishes in the near future coming up. Dan, we don't introduce our guests. We don't read the beautiful bios that you sent. They know you've got Italian heritage to you, yet they know nothing else about Dan Tocchini. So why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, how you see fit?
Okay. Well, I'm an entrepreneur and a creative, I guess. I have multiple businesses I own and operate with different partners. I have a consulting firm called Take New Ground, which is really, we do strategic implementations. We have another company called Take New Ground, our TNG Capital Partners, and we have companies in there that we service and own. And between those two companies, I keep myself pretty doggone busy. So
it does sound like it. Now, again, I could go in so many directions. I usually give Bob the opportunity for question number one. Bob has been, as our audience may know, Bob usually cyber stalks our guests. When they have a unique name, it's much easier. Otherwise, he complains about the fact that, well, he doesn't have the name Bob Stewart. And we get into that whole spiel. Bob, you've done some cyber stalking. Before I jump into some specific questions, something you want to attack?
Dan, talk to me. So I've watched a whole bunch of your stuff. There was one concept that, can we talk for a second about hugging the cactus?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's
that's another name for giving Ben Kinney a hug. Right? Hugging the cactus.
Talk about this because I as I was watching some stuff, this whole idea, and I look, I watched a lot of your stuff, so I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but the hugging the cactus comes out of this concept that like all of us have this, that are kind of have this dark side to us, and we have this light side to us. Can you just like explain to me this concept that you believe in?
Yeah, I got it from when I was a young kid. I grew up with Jesuits, and there was always, one of the things that particularly in debate class, it came up quite a bit, and that is know your limits. Kind of know where you get lost. Know the things that get you into trouble. Know the things that you do to protect yourself, but generally, if they're overused, get you in trouble. And so hugging the cactus is becoming familiar with those things, the things you probably judge yourself for, and knowing them so that when they come up, they become more of an ally, not an enemy. They inform you as to the things like it's probably time to stop and listen, ask some questions. You're probably on the verge of getting yourself into hot water that you're historically familiar with.
Give me an example of what you're speaking on, Dan. I didn't watch all the videos that Bob had the chance to watch. I love the visual of hugging the cactus. We all know I don't want to. This is going to hurt. Give me a specific example that you've coached someone through or in your own world where hugging the cactus kind of showed up.
I'll start with myself. So naturally, I have a propensity in my when I go off the reservation. I usually go off in the reservation. I'll exaggerate. Even I've lied to make myself look better in my own eyes than I am, or than I think I am. So if I don't feel competent, I might tell a story that makes me look confident. And instead of, I'm a little nervous here. There's maybe ask some more questions, get connected to what I could contribute versus trying to impress someone. So knowing that about myself has been very helpful when I get into a negotiation and I don't know something, or I get into a sales pitch and I don't know something, to say I don't know, or you know what, I need to take some time to look that up or whatever, rather than make something up. I'm 70 now, and that thing's still with me. And I notice I just catch it early before it gets me into a situation where I undermine my credibility.
Okay. Bob, do we want to dive in to figure out what all your cactus points are?
I mean, no, but we don't. But I'm starting to think through, like, what are those things? I mean, I think self-awareness and kind of identifying what those are for yourself is the start of trying to figure out, how do I turn those into something, or hug those things about. Man,
so Dan, is there a simple exercise or question we could be asking ourselves that will help us start to identify those prickle points?
Yeah, the things you complain about.
Notice, Bob then is one of mine.
It's just the opening. The opening is your complaints are usually an indicator as to where you feel most inadequate. And what has happened is you are complaining because you can get a certain level of experience and result, but you can't get to the level you want to be at, so you complain about it. And that kind of satisfies your sense of, it satisfies like I'm doing something about it when you're actually doing nothing. You're just complaining and you're settling for the way things are. And you don't want to expose you don't want to get into the conversation because you might have to give up what little you have or what you've been settling for. And this shows up in business all the time. You got somebody hired, they're a great performer, but they're not a good team player, and they're costing you money on that side. And they're eating away at, if they get exceptions, other team members want exceptions, that kind of thing. But you don't want to address this person's attitude because they might go upside down, and then you're stuck losing this performer. And what do you do with that, right? And
that's one in our industry all the time. I mean, a lot of our people are in the real estate industry. Bob, how many teams do we know out there who have an agent that's performing really well, yet they're coloring outside the lines and not following the standards, and nobody wants to address it with them because their results are good enough to say, well, we'll leave them alone because they're having results. So Dan, you're saying that right there, that's a point right on your cactus,
right.
The way you're avoiding.
So the cactus there is you prostituting yourself. Because then here's how it usually plays out. They do something stupid, or because they're an exception in their mind, and it comes back as in liability to the company. That's one way it looks up. Or they upset a client, and you lose a client, or you lose somebody valuable on the team in administration or something because they've been mistreated and nobody's really. There have been plenty of signs along the way. That brings up another principle called the shit hors d'oeuvre principle.
Okay.
So that guy, I learned that from my grandfather. He's an old Tuscan. And he would say, Junior, like something would blow up, and he'd say, Junior, this came to you as a shit hors d'oeuvre. You didn't want to eat it, so you pushed it away. It came back as a shit sandwich. You still pushed it away. Came back as a 2-course meal. You pushed it away again, and now it's a shit buffet. And and another, I like to say it more philosophically, what you refuse to face now will eventually defeat you.
Yeah.
I can hear it in Grandpa's accent right now, his thick, heavy Italian accent, giving you that, and the hand when he's telling you the story. Right?
Junior, I can't believe you're worse than your father.
I mean, that's so true. like think about that, Chad, that employee that's abrasive and they're a good performer. Dan, we talk about balancing love and results. Like you can be a part of our world if you get results, but we gotta we gotta love you. Like we gotta be able to invite you over to the kid's birthday party, or like we want to have you in our house for Christmas. So we talk about love and results, but we got those people that get results and they're abrasive or they're toxic or. And to your grandfather's point, man, if I would have dealt with it when there was 4 of us, but I didn't, and now we grew, and now there's 8 of us, and then it grew, and now there's 15, and all of a sudden that we're gonna have to deal with this person, but it could blow the whole thing up. It could become the big buffet because the business has been letting this fester inside of it for years.
Yeah. Usually, so here's what I've found, that the breakdown that hasn't happened needs to happen because the possibility, the bigger possibilities on the other end of it, like the obstacle is the way. That whole thinking, the whole stoic thinking, it works. And one of the things my gift is to find the gem, or use the obstacle to get to the other side of it. But most people, you have an internal chatter that goes on. Oh, this is wrong, bad, or broken. And it's either there's something wrong, bad, or broken with it, them, or me. And if you can disintermediate that conversation, if you can interrupt that conversation, you can ask the question, I wonder what's working, what's not working, what's wanted and needed. And you can depersonalize the breakdown. That's a practice. Most people don't do that. So we tend to approach each other punitively when things don't work. That's a cactus, right? Like, I usually, if I'm punitive, it's because somehow I'm trying to justify my participation and you must be the issue. So.
Okay. Now that means conflict is coming.
Oh yeah. Conflict is necessary. It's part of its gravity. It's the gravity of excellence. Excellence is the cumulative resolution, successful resolution of conflict.
So let's talk more about that, how we prepare for conflict, how conflict is the thing that leads us to success, because there are so many people listening to this podcast, much less in the world, that do everything they can do to avoid conflict unless it's on social media, right? If it's on social media, they're hiding behind this identity. They can have conflict all day long, yet they will do almost anything to avoid conflict face to face. Bob's good at avoiding conflict and dancing around it. What does our audience need to know about conflict, how to handle it, how to deal with it, and how to make sure they understand what you're saying about it being the path to success?
There's 2 components. That question is a good question, but it's problematic, and you're asking how. It needs to be who first. Like, who am I in this situation? And what am I up to, really? What am I up to with this team? And then I've really got to, and what am I committed to when I say, what am I up to? What am I committed to having happen with this team about whatever I'm engaging? So if I've got a problem or there's a potential breakdown, or there's a breakdown, I perceive a breakdown. The first thing I know is that what I perceive may not be true. So I want to test it. And so the conversation is to vet my insights to see if they're accurate. So most people don't spend much time preparing for difficult conversations besides scripting out. If I said this, then if they say this, I'll say that, and you're scripting on, which is just it's
complete waste of time because they never say what you want them to say.
And it's adolescent. It's just not, because that's all about being right. It's not about really having the outcome turn out. So the first thing is prepare. And the best way to prepare, I want to prepare because I want to be grounded. I want to be grounded in like what my commitment to these people are and what outcome I'm looking for. Secondly, I'm going to listen for openings, not outcomes. So an outcome is I'm having this conversation because I want to sell this house, or I want to get this guy up to doing what he said he's going to do, something like that. I got it. Okay, good. That may be the aim. That's the ultimate goal, but that's not what I'm listening for. I'm listening for openings, things I can explore that will create an environment for what I want to see happen. I can't make somebody do something, but I am an environment. So preparing is vital. So I'm clear. Why am I having this conversation? What do I want to have happen here? And how do I want this to turn out for us? So the first thing I do is I write down the issue as I see it. And by the way, in this process of preparing, you may realize something through step 2, 3, or 4 that has you go back and alter what you're really there for. Because we often are not mad for why we think we're mad, or we're not upset or, disturbed for why we initially think we were. So write down as succinctly as possible. And this is great because once you get this stuff written, you can put it in ChatGPT and it'll help you clarify it even more. So write down the issue, and then write down an example of the issue that you want to talk about. That example should exemplify for the person what you're seeing. Okay, the issue is, I don't,
So if it's Bob being late or missing some of these webinars, for example, then I'm writing.
Whoa, we just went right to the heart of the matter here, Dan.
I'm writing down the challenge, which is, Bob not showing up and giving last minute notification for it. Then what you're asking for, though, is a specific example where I can say, Bob, on December 3rd, you gave me 4 minutes notice that you weren't coming and left me alone for a podcast episode I wasn't prepared to handle on my own. So it's getting that specific.
That's really
Ben Kinney's fault. It was Ben Kinney's fault.
We can get into it.
Okay, step 1 and step 2, I wrote it down. I have figured it out. Now, the problem might have changed, you're saying, because I might realize it's not just that, it's just promptness, or it's communication with Bob.
Well, or it could be you feeling disrespected because he didn't keep his promise.
Okay.
And I wonder what's between, like what's wanted and needed. Automatically what happens is I'm working myself. I'm saying, look, if I have a situation that I am dissatisfied with, I wonder what my contribution was. Not that I'm to blame and not that Bob's to blame, but I'm contributing, and there must be something we're both getting out of this if it continues to reoccur. So if I can get to that, I can own my part. But the first thing is, so I give them the example, then I tell them this is what I experience. I feel dishonored. I feel led upon, or whatever, all the different things you might feel.
Okay.
And it goes on. And then the next one is how I've contributed to this is.
Okay. So now I'm taking my ownership and my responsibility in the situation.
Yeah, the part you contributed. Now,
Okay.
I differentiate that from, because we're not talking about blame, shame, or credit here. We're just talking about, how did I contribute? How, and if I can get a hold of that, I'm going to be much more open-handed with Bob or whomever when I'm talking to him, because I can see that, hey, this is a team thing. This is a system. Okay?
But Dan, it's not my fault. There's nothing for me. It was all Bob. Right? Isn't that the thought people are having? It's not me. It's all Bob.
That's right. And that might be your contribution, is thinking it's all Bob.
Okay.
That could be the contribution.
Okay.
Because when I do that, I stop looking at how I can stand and remedy it.
One thing I would interject here, Chad, I think Ben he's gotten, so we have a partner, Dan, that was kind of one of the co-founders of this organization that Chad and I are part of. And he is extreme in this particular portion of things, because he will almost always find or concoct, even, I would say, like some of his DNA on that thing to make that other person feel like it wasn't, entirely their blame, even though I realize that we're not here necessarily assigning blame, but he always wants to put some of his DNA on that thing or figure out why. Like, for example, Chad might think he never did anything, but he's let me do this 5 or 6 times in the past and never had a conversation with me. So maybe there is, like, sometimes on this one, I think you really have to dig deep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But, that's actually, he's looking for how he contributed. The thing about this is, let me distinguish blame, shame, and credit from being responsible, because this is one of the things we hit hard in our culture with, because the culture translates blame as responsibility. They're exactly opposite. Blame, shame, and credit are all anchored in what part of time?
The past.
The past. That's right. Yeah. So if I give blame, if I shame myself, if I take credit, I'm justifying what happened in the past as if that's the future. But it's not. Justification, if I justify what didn't work, I will inherit what didn't work. So the idea is, okay, if I was going to take account of this and not justify but to look at the future I'm committed to and look and see what was missing for that future to come into being. Responsibility is always about the future now, not the past. So otherwise I'm just going to repeat the past over and over again. I'm driving, looking through the rearview mirror. That doesn't mean I don't look at the past to learn and to think, but I'm going to take responsibility from the future I'm committed to.
Okay. Bob, before you ask a question or we get into something, I want to remind our listeners, you're hearing us share today with Dan Tocchini. If you want to know more, the website is takenewground.com. Now, one of the things I found on the website that I want you to do the 30-second promo for me, Dan, is the event you've got coming up in March, Revenant. Talk to us, just what is that?
Well, everything we're talking about now is the basis. It's a 4-day intensive leadership program, transformational in nature. We've had most of our clients send their leadership team or executive team. They tend to go. It's always by choice. We interview people because it's highly professional. There's a lot of professionals in the room. They're taking 4 days off. We want to make sure everybody in there wants to roll up their sleeves. And it's a no-nonsense transformational experience. We're transforming leadership into leadership, if you will.
I like that. Basically, what we're hearing on this podcast to the extreme for 4 days. So, folks, if that's of interest to you, you want to know more about it, check out takenewground.com, Revenant, which you'll find under trainings on their website. Bob?
So one of the things that I assume that you would cover in an incredible amount of depth in March would be the concept of candor. And I've had a chance, Dan, to and I work like daily almost with some of the top real estate team owners in the United States. These are people that are doing 500, 600 transactions a year, and they've got 20 or 30 agents working in their team, and they run these, incredibly profitable organizations. And there is one common thread almost through every single one of those big business owners, and it's their ability to just have radical candor. And, our founder, Chad, I don't know if you know anybody that's more straightforward than Ben is, but so I see this in so many. My mother is somebody that rose up in the ranks of corporate America, who's radically I don't know what's the verb of candor. Candorous is not the blunt. She's blunt, frank. This is such a common thread amongst just highly successful business people. Can we talk for a little bit about candor and why it's so important?
Yeah, there's actually a paradox there. We've identified multiple paradoxes that illuminate tensions that business leaders have to navigate. And a lot of times they get stuck in trying to eliminate the tension rather than lead through it. And one of the tensions is the tension between candor, or if you will, frankness, and tactical, being tactful. Tact, yeah. So that's right. So tact is obviously the ability to say something in a way that people can receive it. And if you look at if you think of a paradox like an X and like a graph, so you have a Y-axis, that's the active trait, that would be candor. The X-axis would be tact. And so if you're high on tact and low on candor, you're evasive. If you're high on candor and low on tact, you're blunt. Both of them are to become, you narrow the band of people you can communicate with. And when you're running a business, you want to be as broad as you can to be effective. So you got to know when to use tact, when to use candor, when to use both.
So true. That. It's so every single one of us, everybody listening, and the three of us all know somebody that think candor is their superpower. I just tell it like it is, but they have zero tact, right? You could probably imagine every single one of us could have somebody pop up in our head. I'm like, oh, yep, that's him. That's her.
Why are you looking at me while you're saying this?
I'm not looking at you. I'm just expecting that everybody else listening had you pop in their head.
I'm sure.
But yeah, that's so true. Holy smokes.
Yeah, so we're always, these tensions, they're actually skills. And people who are successful in business have navigated these skills over and over again. They may not even be conscious of it, but they're able to dial these kinds of tensions in a way that make a difference. And we know who they are in the organization because they're the people that people usually go to get coaching from before they do something difficult. So
I wonder, are those two things like diabolically opposed, candor and tact? Because I feel like I have decent tact, but I'm not very awesome at candor, and which I think you could probably learn it in either direction. I think Ben, Chad, is really. I think he was defaulted to candor and has learned tact over the years. One of the most tactful things he ever says is, hey, would you be offended if I gave you my perspective on this thing? He'll ask that he's going to give you some candor, but he'll always ask for permission to give you the candor, which I think is I think he learned that tact skill over time.
Well, when you talk about a paradox, they look like opposites, but they're actually interdependent. You need them both. And there's a number of them, in the same vein as candor and tact is enforcement and warmth and empathy. Like when to enforce, and warmth and empathy is the ability to create a connection with people so that when you enforce, they respect it, they get up to it. And if you're high on enforcement, low on warmth and empathy, you're harsh. If you're long on warmth and empathy and short on enforcement, you're permissive. And so you can see that in teams where people get away with shit forever. Then all of a sudden, the person who's been so permissive blows up because they thought they were giving this person a break, and nobody knew. The person thought what they were doing was working because nobody was saying anything, right? So these are tensions that naturally show up on a team in a culture. And if people aren't aware of them, they tend to be more reactive to them. If you're aware of them, you can be more proactive, more strategic in your tactical execution with them.
So we've got this graph that you kind of drew in the air for us here. Everyone kind of fit, right? The X graph, you've got your tact, you've got your candor. You want to be, as you said, as wide as possible, right? You don't want to be just tact, or you don't want to be just candor at the bottom. What skills or what lessons can we learn? What would Dan be coaching us through to be able to say, let's widen that image on the graph for you? What are some things our audience could take from it?
So this is a big part of this. We go deep into this in the Revenant. So you're listening. Now, when I say you're listening, we work with you on listening to your listening, or noticing your noticer. How do you, in other words, you and I are having a conversation. But while we're having this conversation, we have the ability to process up to 350, 400 words per minute. We're not even talking close to that. So we take the RAM we have left over and we have other conversations, like I might have an evaluation about the conversation. I like it. I don't like it. It's good. It's bad. It's useful. It's not, etc. I prefer it. I don't. And that's going on while the conversation's going on. I'll probably have a conversation. I always have a conversation going on. How am I doing in the conversation? Do I look good? Am I competent? Blah, blah, blah. Am I acceptable? Do people like me? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then as well, I have a conversation about the other person. Did they keep their word? Can I trust them? Are they competent? Do I, like that? Those are all going on at the same time. If I'm aware of them, I can intervene in them to listen. And when I speak to you, I can check in to see if what I'm hearing is what you're saying, or am I giving you credit for what I'm making up? And that causes a lot of mischief in situations, particularly high pressure situations. And if I go ahead and provoke and project onto you what meaning I gave to your communication without checking in, we could go down a tangent for hours and discover later that all I did was make something up you weren't saying. And that happens a lot.
How often do we do that? Right?
I was going to say, have you been sitting at my dinner table before my wife and I had kids? What is
but I am
going
married, so I'm familiar.
All right. Again, folks, we've been talking with Dan Tocchini. Look, Dan and I will have to exchange ravioli recipes and limoncello recipes and stuff offline to be able to connect on all of that. Dan, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to start a 1-minute clock here in a second for you. I want you to give our audience 1 minute. You can repeat something you've already said and say, I really want them to hear this. Or you can give us something that we didn't even get to yet in conversation, saying, it's on my heart to share this message with your audience before we get out of here. I'm stalling a little, giving you that time to kind of think what you want it to be. All right, Dan, 1 minute on the clock. What is it?
It's vulnerability. I'd say vulnerability is not. A lot of people look at vulnerability as weakness, and I would say it's not weakness. It's not a passing indisposition or something that we can arrange to do without. It's actually not a choice. It is the underlying, ever-present, and abiding undercurrent of our natural state. So to run from vulnerability is to run from the essence of our very nature. It is to run from. It's like an attempt to be invulnerable, and that's a vain attempt because to become something we're not always works against us. Most especially to close off our ability to suffer with others, and to be able to suffer with others is to be able to collaborate, to get shoulder to shoulder instead of head to head. So the first thing to do to be able to be vulnerable is to master myself. If I can master myself, I can lead others well, and results tend to break through. But vulnerability, in my experience, is where it starts.
I fully believe that, by the way. I think, like, it's...
And I'm not talking about...
No, we're all out there. Like, I think the biggest lives are built on the back of connections with other people. And in order to do that, you have to show up with some level of vulnerability so that those people feel like you're somebody worth connecting with. Like, Chad, every single experience that you and I have had in business and in life has been the result of the people we've been able to experience it with. And I think that, like, vulnerability is such a big part of building relationships with people, and the greatest things in our lives come out of the relationships that we form, and sometimes collectively form to massive scale, like we're doing at Place. Or I think that's a really great last.
Well, if you think about it, every entrepreneur knows it, because when you step into an entrepreneurial position, when you start a business, you are vulnerable, and they know it well. So to get language on it is a great way to bring people in and orient them to what's wanted and needed in your organization. And that takes some gonads, man. But it's just accepting the kind of the reality of where we're at, in life.
The internet hasn't made it any easier, because you go online and it looks like nobody's vulnerable, everybody's doing it, it's the best lives of ever. And I think but when you sit down,
I posted my failed sourdough bread experiment yesterday, but everybody could see these not perfect sourdoughs that I'm seeing everybody make for the holidays. My sourdough is a vulnerable moment in my life, folks, and I will connect with any of you having the same challenge. Folks, you can connect with Dan through takenewground.com. Best place to find him and connect with him right there. A lot of resources on their website. Check out what he's sharing. Check out the program they've got, Revenant, coming up in March. If that's something that you want a lot more of this at a high level, see if it fits for you. Dan, we really appreciate you taking the time and joining us here on Win, Make, Give today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed both of you guys. Thank you.
Well, we love doing it. We love sharing. And boy, it helps Bob and I become better. We really hope it's helping you out there become better.
Chad, I have a few of issues I'd like to take up with you in Dan's format, if we could schedule some time later.
You want to do it live on our next episode and just air it?
No, probably not the best idea. All right.
This could be a fun episode for, the audience said, yeah, do it, guys. Folks, we love all of you. I don't know when this is going to drop. So I'm going to say it. I'm either going to say happy holidays, or I'm going to say, I hope you had happy holidays. Whichever way it is, folks, we wish you the best. And until our next episode, as always, do good.